Good morning. It's still morning, isn't it? My name is Guy Baldwin, and unlike the program, which says that this is all about from me to y'all, it's not going to be that way. It's actually a panel discussion, and that's why these clowns are up here. And they're all here to be quiet. I'm actually going to do all the talking.
You said it was going to be a raffle.
Shut up.
There's no cake.
Stop talking.
You promised me cake too.
Don't tell me.
Just people from LA buy all the time.
All right. So who are these clowns here that I'm working with today? On my extreme left over there with the glasses is the person who had glasses on a moment ago. It's John Perngard. John is the executive director at IML. He's the spark plug that makes IML happen.
It's his fault.
This is where you wave, John, and look pleasant.
Oh, that's so hard. So
Do this. Not the empty smiles.
Can somebody bring us water, please? Oh, fine. Thank you. John's, not yet. John's first real introduction to the title system was at his first IML in 1992. He had heard about the thing that happens in Chicago every year, and it was that year that he was finally able to make it to the event. Like many, he went to the sex, the friends, and the fun, and the sex, and the sex. This is, what is this? You got a glitch in your machine here?
No, you're just double vision.
And he met, oh, that's it. Yeah, that happens when you get older. He met briefly Chuck Renslow at the end of that event. After those 4 days in May, John felt like a connection to something special and something important, although he hadn't fully grasped its meaning at the time. After moving to Chicago in 1994, John connected with some of the IML staff and eventually signed on, and as you can see, has risen to the top of that process. Working with and meeting people from around the world helped him quickly realize that an event like IML is about a lot more than sex and play and the vendors and the contestants. And that it really does matter in ways that are not clear to everyone. But it does matter. Over the years, he, like all the rest of us who pay attention to these things, has seen events change and evolve. IML in particular has evolved way past its beginning in 1979, as it now welcomes and represents all things fetish and truly is an international event. As the internet became the new way people hooked up and many bars began to close down, IML remains a relevant force for networking, learning, meeting people, and sharing experiences with others we may never have otherwise had the chance to come to know. And then there was the contestant side of things. Just about anyone who has competed at IML will tell you firsthand that it is and certainly can be a life-changing experience. And while those on the outside often view it as nothing more than a leather kinky beauty pageant, they and John will also tell you that it is much more than that. Each of the 1,700 plus men who have put on their stuff on the IML stage will tell you what they learned, what they felt, and the power of the connections and experience they shared with their fellow class members. And some, not all of course, but some of these amazing men take that experience and that special energy back to their towns and cities and even countries and become a force for good, a force for change, for the betterment, presumably, of us all. Having witnessed all of this firsthand over the years, in spite of the dramas and challenges, John believes strongly that the title system and contests do matter. They do make a difference, and they remain an important congregation point for us all, whether it is a small town, a big city, or even on the international stage. And to put a finer point on this, IML draws some 17,000 plus people to Chicago every year. It began in 1979 with 400. It's about that so overly used word, community. So yes, John tells us, the title system does matter. Please welcome John Kronberg. To my left is Larry Golubsky. The one who hasn't had glasses on up here.
It's going to be a long morning, folks.
That's why I took him back. Larry was Mr. Long Beach Leather in 2005 and was the first runner-up during IML 2006. He lives in Long Beach with his husband, Russ Donaldson, who he met here at the Claw.
Is something more you?
Yay! Where is he? Here?
Okay. Stand up, Russ.
You're right.
Sit down, Russ.
Larry has been a long-time advocate for gay and human rights. He directed the homeless clothing drives in Long Beach. He's the past president of the Long Beach AIDS Foundation. He's been a Claw MC and presenter and volunteer here for 9 years. He's a Claw board member and continues to mentor many in the leather community. Acknowledgement of Larry's involvement from the community includes the 2006 Most Supportive Individual from the LALC, the Los Angeles Leather Coalition, and the 2009 Donald Snow Memorial Award from the Long Beach Lambda Democratic Club. Please welcome Larry Golubsky. On my right, Eric Paul Loya, born and raised in East Berlin. You know, there are people in this room who don't know there was ever an East Berlin.
I'm living proof.
There was an East Berlin. Lived for 4 years in London and moved to Los Angeles in 2013. He began his kinky life at age 14. I want to hear that story sometime.
That's another patent.
It might even be illegal.
Not in Germany.
Kansas anymore, Dorothy.
And at the end of the first inning, Patrick won, Guy 0.
You can be replaced with a human being.
Good night.
We'll have to run an ad. We'll turn up sooner or later.
Somebody want to get Guy new batteries.
During his title year, he founded the Mutt Pack in Los Angeles, which now has more than 300 members, to restart the pup scene there, and created the International Eagle Titleholder group to bring fellow Eagles closer.
Tell people what you think, not what you think they want to hear. Have something to say and find your voice to say it. And what I marvel at the most, especially in more recent years, as new generations of Leathermen step on stages around the world, they don't necessarily identify as leather. I know puppies. They damn well are kinky, probably a bit more kinky than I was at that age. And even though they're a little green and inexperienced about our community, they have a lot to say. But the changes that I've seen, particularly in the last 10 years, matter the most. When we thought the title thing, and I don't say that in a derogatory way, was perhaps fading and bars started to close. And producers, some of them, sorry, if you're a producer in the room, I'm not pointing at you, but some of them, absolute, complete, utter scumbags who are only in it for the money and less than honorable, and did little to support their winners, let alone hyper-manipulate them. And how we connected with one another changed. We've seen new energy and, yeah, younger leaders stepping in. Some in spite of their leadership and experience in competing for titles and bringing whatever their particular message from around the world, at least to the IML stage. And not just here in Canada and the United States. Look at what's going on in Europe, folks. Titles are popping up left and right. Title events and congregation points are popping up left and right. And there's a real simple reason why this happens and why I'm advocating so fiercely for what it is we do. These events bring us together in real time. And while it's far from perfect, I have seen and we've all seen, but speaking personally for me, from my viewpoint, I've met and dealt with my fair share of crazy. Annoying producers. And plenty of Eve Harringtons in my day. For those of you who don't get that, that's an All About Eve reference. It's on Netflix. The title events, and yes, titles bring us together to network, to share experiences, and oh yeah, let's not forget the fucking and playing part. That's a key too. They are a catalyst for good. It shouldn't always have to be about fundraising. Sorry, Bob.
That's okay, I'm with Larry.
But I truly believe that in this day and age, that anything that gets people together in the same place at the same time and away from this fucking thing for 5 minutes is a great deal. And that's my opinion. Good luck. It was low again.
No, that was serious. Who,
Bitch, you're not getting it back, don't even think about it. We're going down the line, Larry.
all right.
10 years ago, I actually decided to run for a title. I felt very, very strongly at that time. I just wanted to actually represent my own hometown community. At that time, I also met a very dear friend, a friend that I traveled with, a friend that we've done lots and lots of silly shit together over those 10 years. I would never have met him, I would have never known that connection had it not been for that initial competition that we were actually both involved in. Where else are we going to wear our leathers? You know, we look around the room and everything, we buy kink wear, we have all these great sets of gear. We take some things away in our lives, where are you going to wear them? It might get a little tired, a little old if you're just actually in a very small community and there's only 2 or 3 of you. You've seen the same outfit over and over. Eventually, some of those things will end up hitting the back closet and you won't wear them anymore. It will get tired, it'll get old. Here's another thing, power in numbers. Where else do you ever have the opportunity for the amount of education for gay men, gay women, and kinky men, the amount of education that we have offered here this weekend? There's no other place that you're going to have the amount of individuals that are willing to share and expand your own kinkiness. Others are going to just come along for the ride. You know what? They're fun rides. I'm just saying, you all know it. Cream's going to rise to the top. And what I mean by that is, leaders are going to lead. And gratefully, that is one of the wonderful things that happens in all of this. Men and women are going to be very passionate about what they do. They're going to be very passionate about their communities. Causes that actually mean something to them, no matter what the obstacles are. Those things that are absolutely passionate to them are basically our foundation. We're writing our history today based on the passions, the men and women that are actually helping drive us forward as a community. Some events, people are saying, you know what, I can't ever do something like that. I can't do that. Well, you know what? Every event had a small beginning somewhere. Don't be afraid. If you're passionate about it, I don't care if 2 people come to the event. It's two people that wanted to be there. Make a difference. And be very aware of the other people around that are trying to make a difference. Are we always going to get along? Fuck no. We're going to have differences of opinion. But the opinions that we have are really what are setting us apart and allowing us to move forward. We touched last night on something. Online, you can order your sex like a pizza. You can. I want this, I want this, I don't want this. They've got to be hot, they've got to, no, I want a belly, no, I don't want a belly. No, they've got to wear boots, no, I want them in gear. Order your sex like a pizza, great, they're there in 30 minutes. If you don't like them, boom, you're on to the line and on to the next. This is part of our culture today. So part of that is, let's not bitch about what's actually happening, but let's figure out a way to use those very same online experiences and what we can do to create some good and to create a little bit more community. I know some of you in the communities that you live, you've lost your bars. The only way you are ever going to actually be able to stick together as a group and to build your numbers and to build your community is by doing some of those, getting online and actually reaching out to all of those kinky fuckers that are out there that are just waiting for somebody else to step up. I was speaking to a gentleman last night, and I have had some phenomenal men that I've had the opportunity to talk with, to share some experiences along the way in prep of their actually IML experiences. After speaking with one gentleman who I know that somehow I was able to help make a difference in his life, he said to me, he said, you know what, you're more of a dad. That's a pretty cool thing. You get to make a difference in somebody else's life. You get to do something that's important. I'm a much better man today simply because of all the experiences I've had, the people I've met, and the growth that I have had because of it. I met my husband. I met someone that's kinky, someone that enjoys those things. It's like, it doesn't get better than this. Without the community, without all those crazy amounts of, numbers, and whether somebody says those events made a difference or not in their lives, whether that title holder was just in it for themselves or not, this is what we have. This is the vehicle we have left today. It's strong. It's still building. We are seeing men actually become the men they want to be today, simply because others around them, they appreciated their strengths and felt very strongly that they also can step up. Thanks.
I was on a very similar panel not too long ago in San Francisco, and the panel was titled, "Are Leather Titles Necessary?" Today the title is, "Do we still need leather title holders?" And yes, I wrote that down. If it was the first questions, are leather titles necessary, I would probably answer with a very clear no. But the question, do we still need leather title holders, is a very different one. In my IML speech, that I mostly forgot, deer in headlights, I spoke about that we do not need a leader because we're all our own leaders. And I strongly believe that what I did and what I had Guy read out, and that was not self-praise, and if anybody listened to it, because it's rather long, but I on purpose mentioned my titles at the very end, because all else came before. And all else was there before, and all else will be there after, because now is after. But I did it as me, with a title and not as a title did with me. So, do we still need leather title holders? Well, this little East German from, poor other side of the wall who thought he'd never live on this side of the planet, we had playrooms. We would go out, we would go to the bar, we'd grab a beer. Yes, beer is cool in 14, don't worry. And we'd go downstairs into the basement. We would have slings, bathtubs, beds, everything you could imagine. We would play and we would connect there. I never knew about leather titles until I came to Los Angeles. Fancy that. And I went to the Eagle and I was go-go dancing and immigrants.
I'm just trying to picture you in white go-go boots.
Funny, I saw red.
They had fishes in the heels. So it's more like you wear a job and you turn around and people stuff money in it to get to your butt crack. That's cool. And Germans can't dance and we don't have humor, so anyways. So I was go-go dancing and somebody came up to me and was like, hey, so in like 2 weeks we're doing this thing. And I was like, oh great, another work appointment, I'm getting money. And they're like, it's gonna be fun, like you have to be on a jockstrap and stage, and then you wear some other stuff, and they give you a microphone, you answer a couple questions. I'm like, I'm down, what you paying? They're like, what? Okay. That's how I first got into the title holder shoes. And people who know me know what that means. So I never really got the point until I was in it, and then right after followed LAL, then followed Claw, my first experience here, where I was more of a volunteer handing out raffle tickets and doing this and having a shift every 5.5 seconds, and then ending up auctioning off my jock and coming back home going like, what the fuck just happened? The last 4 days. But I met my partner too, but I met him at my step-aside, and that was because I had a title before. What I believe this system was created over and why leather title holders exist, really, is because, as John said, and I actually thought we were totally butt heads on this, it was created because it was a fun night in the bar, and it brought the community together. And on top of that, the bar owner made a couple bucks, because that's the truth. It was a full room, it was 400 people, sell the beer, there you go. We need money in the bars to keep them alive. And I think that what I see and what I've done and what I've tried to do during my title year, if I've seen a community that in 1985, as rightly said, started to be very, very organized because we saw a need to protect each other, because we didn't want us to end. And we came together and we did shit and we went out there and we carried it. And I think that the leather community is one of the most organized that we have within those LGBTQIs. Because we were down in Stonewall, we fought to educate about HIV. We did all this stuff, we started fundraising, we helped each other. We went to each other's homes, and that was LGBTQI together, that was not just gay men. And I believe, if we go back to that question, because I only have 4 minutes and we all know I can talk forever. If we want to answer the question, do we still need leather title holders? If I look at that, then yes, we do. Because Black Lives Matter. Transgender killings in our own community because of misunderstandings, misconceptions, and the fear of something falling away and changing, as John alluded to very rightly so. That once was there. We have PrEP. All of those things. And I think that leather titles are engaging. Being a good leather title holder to me means you're somebody that somebody can reach out to, and you do become what Larry said. You become a dad, you become a father, and in many ways people come to you and ask questions. And I think that what we do still need is, and whether that's titles or not, but we need inspiration, we need energy. We need people that are willing to fight for who we are and who we will be, just because that person has a title and they should go on and do something else, what they want them to do. And I think that that's the biggest danger, because we find people that get broken by the system. And that's when I say we do not need it. But for all the other reasons, I believe we do. Thank you.
The word leadership gets thrown around a lot in connection with title holding. And I've always had a kind of chronically uncomfortable response to that parody. Because in some ways, my experience of the leather folk for going on 50 years pretty soon has been that we're all outlaws. To one degree or another, we are outside the box. And outlaws tend to be allergic to being led anywhere. As a group of people, we do not take to being led easily or comfortably or quickly. In fact, we tend to be allergic to attempts to draw us in any particular direction. And that, I think, has caused a tremendous amount of friction over the years in our world, and I think that's tragic. What we are responsive to, however, is inspiration. And holding a title confers upon a title holder the attention of a room for 90 seconds, tops. You have a title, you step in front of a room, any room, they're going to pay attention to you for 90 seconds. You've got 90 seconds to reach into other people and affect them in some way that matters. That's it. That's really all the title guarantees you. It carries with it no other promises, including fame or sex, least of all sex. Yeah, I mean, when I won IML, back when the earth was cooling, it ruined my sex life for about 5 years. I started having to wear a mask. It was easier that way for a bunch of reasons. Don't say a word.
That's why we've been friends for 25 years.
And don't say another fucking word. One of the things that I've wagered, and I don't want to see any American Sign Language out of you. One of the things that I'll bet a lot of the people in this room don't know is that Claw, this event, Bob, don't walk out. You do not have our permission to withdraw.
I think I
The leather gods have spoken.
No, this is important. Bob, the man standing back here by the table, is one of the main spark plugs for Claw. And Bob was a title holder in what year, Bob?
2001.
In 2001, he competed for IML. And at IML, someone there suggested that it was the responsibility of the title holders who were competing for the IML title that year to return to the communities that they had come from. Because it was in those communities that they had come from that was the real bedrock of the leather BDSM radical sex world, not the people who were in Chicago that weekend. To go back because your communities back home need you. They need your time, they need your attention, they need your inspiration, they need whatever leadership they can tolerate from you. But most of all, what they really needed was action. And Bob and the other title holder, whose name was
Dennis McMahon.
Dennis McMahon, came back to this city and created Claw out of the inspiration that they got from competing at IML. Thank you, Bob. For anyone who doubts that holding title can be a spark plug for something much larger has only to look at that man standing there in this event that you're all part of to see evidence that holding title really can be a world-changing phenomenon. So from that point of view, the title system has value. But like most things that exist in the world, there's a yin and yang kind of quality to it. Titles can also be extraordinarily destructive. All of us who've been around for a while have watched title holding destroy title holders to one extent or another. And it's not pretty to watch. Because what happens is they misunderstand the title. They go after it for the wrong reasons. The best person for the job doesn't always win the title. And that's a tragedy, but it's a reality. Because it's a very strange way to choose inspirers or leadership. Another thing worth pointing out is that the mission of title holding has changed over the years. It was really originally a beauty contest. And when HIV came along, Patrick Toner in 1985 decided he was going to harness the prestige of the IML title to fundraising to support people living with AIDS. And that produced a 10-year commitment on the part of title holders to use fundraising as part of their title responsibility and obligation. But what's so is that HIV doesn't operate in our world the same way that it did back then. But we're still on the fundraising bandwagon. I'm frankly, personally, pissed off that we raise money for everybody but ourselves. And the other thing I'm a little annoyed about is that there isn't anything that will suck the life out of a room any faster than a fucking fundraiser. Now, I understand there's still a need for fundraising, but don't do it in the same room where guys are trying to hook up with one another. Because it's a soft on. I heard that.
My grandma always said who whispers laughs.
You're right through, Larry. I heard it.
Hey, wait.
There you go. Anyway, those are just some thoughts about title holding off the top of my head. But I believe in the system. I believe that it's a vulnerable system, however, and vulnerable to misuse, vulnerable to abuse, vulnerable to misunderstanding, easily misunderstood by outsiders, easily misunderstood by insiders too. But that doesn't necessarily diminish its potential for value. So, there you have it. Now discuss, boys.
This is just sort of, I'm hearing a common thread here across all four of us. But I know we're supposed to discuss amongst yourselves. But, I mean, I know there's a whole bunch of you guys over here that are in the IMO class of 37. If you don't hold the title or have ever held the title, raise your hand. No?
You would
You don't have one held?
Never.
Never have not.
Yeah, why are you raising your hand?
Yeah, yes, understood the question.
Okay, now, some of you I know, most of you I don't. But I can assure you, put those hands up again, please.
Never held.
You've never had a title. Okay.
That's amazing.
All right, now keep it up there. I can assure you from the people that I do know with their hands up, they're living proof. You don't need a title to be a leader in your community. You don't need a title to, if I may quote Stephen Colbert, to be a difference maker. Okay? A title is sort of an icing thing on the cake. You know, in the old days, you know, back in, you know, as Guy said, when the earth was cooling and the medallions were stone tablets. Chips of by the carrots for the Flintstones. You know, it was a lot of the people, and Guy, maybe you can validate this because I've only read it, and you know, I were there. And people that would step up and into these titles and competed at IML, and then eventually when Drummer came online, not in the real sense because we didn't have internet back then.
76.
You know, they were folks that had been in their towns. God, I hate that word, community. It's just so abused, and they were kind of folks that had been around a while and they had gotten their chops, and you know, They had a hatting ceremony that didn't exist. But they step up and ran for a title then. And what has morphed more into these days, the people that are stepping up, this isn't a slight, it's observation. Newer folks to the scene, let alone their own hometowns, and still finding their way with their kinks and leadership skills, but they're still stepping up and competing locally, and some of them winning.
Talking about leadership, sorry. I do believe there is a difference in the different levels that do exist. I mean, at least through LA, I know that this, at least in Los Angeles, exists so that you go from a bar title to the regional title and then you go to IML. And I do believe that when you hold a title that is overseeing more and more, or that is in its name overseeing more and more, because it really is not the presidential election, I do think there is a different set of responsibility that comes with it. Because I can do the fun and I can do the bringing the community together. I can do it with the title, I can do it without the title. With the title, if I'm a bar title holder, I probably want to throw a bar night. My bar hates me because I was never home. I'm kidding, they still like me somewhat. But then comes the regional, and that's when you become a louder voice. And especially, I know that there is communities that have the same system. And I do think that when you get to another level, I mean, Guy Baldwin, I was 25, sorry, I'm going to totally say this. I was 25 years after this man on the IML stage. And he was as fortunate. Maybe younger. Birth did not cool in 19, what was that?
There's that metric system.
And it wasn't dog years. And I do believe that there is value to it because you do become somebody that is known, because there were people like him and there were people in other years that were there that carried a voice and that went across. I mean, we see Israel popping up with the leather title. We see the leather title in Germany die.
Well, there's another piece that we see that is concerning to me. The year that I was head judge at MAL, same year that I held the IML title, there were 26 contestants. How many contestants were at IML this year? MAL, sorry. MAL. Five. Why? Why is that? It's a mystery. Are people less interested in running for titles?
Well, I think
What's happening when one person comes up as the contestant for some local title? What does that mean? Does it mean anything?
Well,
Is it something we should be concerned about?
I want to talk about something that Eric said. Eric, I'm not dismissing what you're saying. I don't necessarily think that everybody has the same viewpoint. If you go out for a title, what is expected of you? Not a goddamn thing!
Correct.
You don't have to do shit!
Correct.
It's only if you choose to. For everybody that's out there, it's like, well, what's your platform? What are you going to do? You know what? I'm going to fuck and suck my way through the next year. And that's just fine.
If I may. True. Raymond, could you stand up for a second? He doesn't know I'm doing this. But I want to prove Larry's point. On Sunday, after the IML contest, when the medallion that he's not wearing has been... That used to be Woody Woodruff.
Okay, you look so different. Sing something.
All right, but let me bring this back. So I want to prove that point that Larry just made. When we get the winners back into the office, just for a cool down and get some things taken care of, we kind of go through the rules. Now, congratulations, you've won IML. What are you going to do now? Ramian, what were the rules?
show up next year to help pick my successor.
And
Don't fuck it up.
that's it. That's it.
And let's be clear about what "don't fuck it up" means. It means not doing anything that will bring dishonor to the title.
Yes, correct.
Don't get arrested.
You want to
For
take,
only a year, you have to have your shit together.
At least while others see.
okay? If you want to take the medal and the sash, go home, take your Orbitz travel vouchers, and nobody sees hide nor hair of you for 51 weeks. Good for you. Real simple.
It means you've been successful.
Okay? They've been successful if I don't hear about it, or Chuck doesn't hear about it. But the bigger point is, these rules aren't rules. They're not written. It's a sharing. Woody, we said the same thing, didn't we?
Yeah, absolutely.
And every one of them before them.
And I'm a big proponent of that too. And I was talking to Chuck Renfro this morning. If you tell someone they have to do something, they're going to maybe do it, maybe. But if you give them the opportunity to make their decision and pursue something they're passionate about, they're going to do it a hell of a lot stronger, a hell of a lot harder, and they're going to make a difference because it means something to them. So that's it.
And that's the point. That's the point of view that Chuck has taken and all of us inside the organization have taken. Not whether it's an IML title, I can't speak for, ILS or, what's the other one? The one, DNA, that's fine. Or IMSL, or all the way down to, Mr. La Brea Tar Pits. Whatever the title is, it's, Eric just found a new title to compete for. Whatever it is, for whatever reason you've stood up to try and represent, in whatever reason you have for representing, make it what you want it to be.
It's an opportunity.
It's an opportunity for change. It has the potential, doesn't always work out that way, but it has the potential to be a force for good.
It's yours to waste.
Well, but even that being said, sometimes things happen in our lives. Sometimes we have great intentions, and because of logistics, because of family, because of work-related issues, any number of those things can go crazy within our lives. Don't beat the guy or girl up that's actually in that title because they said they were going to do something. Things happen.
That you
We
don't
do those
know
things,
about.
exactly, we do those things in our own lives. We may have goals and aspirations of what we want to get done this next year or the year after. Life changes, life morphs. We have to actually work with it. Again, it doesn't mean that that individual, in the next year or two down the road isn't going to take those goals and aspirations and completely flourish with them, whether they do or they don't. People come into our lives. People will leave our lives, whether it be the leather community, whether it be our own personal lives. Allow those things to happen. Bid them goodwill, and let it happen. Life is too complex. It's like we got to lighten up on some of this shit.
True that.
It's all fun and games until someone puts out a list of rules.
Or a book in the eye.
I just want to make clear I wasn't speaking of rules, I was speaking of intent. So when I judge a contest, what I look for is I look for character, integrity, honesty, and I look for the person. Why are they running for a title? Many people run for a fucking title because they just want to have a fun night. And that's totally cool. And if you win it, you obviously have the most fun of all of them on stage. And I think that that's perfect. And I don't think that there's something attached to it, but I think there comes a certain level of outreach. There comes a certain level of, here's a message that I want you to understand. And I think that that's part of it. And I think that our community has always been inspirational to one another. One person believes in capping ceremonies, the others don't. And I think both is valid. Because it's how you live your king. I just hope that when somebody runs for a title, that they have something to say. It doesn't have to be much. It can be 90 seconds, but say something. Because to me that's important, because I think there have been great people before that have said a lot. And you know, for me, my community is my family, and I want my community to do well. And we have faced lots of shit in the last year and in the last 6 years. And I think that it's important to acknowledge that.
Turning to a new topic.
You spoke about numbers of contestants before, but we didn't go back to that.
Okay, we can go there later. Probably there's somewhere else. As I can. There's a generational issue with the title system that I think has gone unacknowledged. There was a certain period during the whole title phenomenon, the arc of the title phenomenon, where it was a good time. It was a party. It was a fashion show. It was a beauty contest. HIV came along, and that changed the tenor of a lot of the contest circuit. HIV is in a different place now than it was, and so title holders have a different set of forces that are acting on their consciousness, if you will. The title system has become a gateway into the world of kink and leather exploration, maybe. Something that it was not 20 years ago at all. In order to win and carry a title 20, 25 years ago, you had to know your chops. You had to have some experience. You had to be able to talk intelligently about a wide range of subjects related to radical sexuality. Nowadays, a lot of the guys who are stepping up to hold title have maybe a year or two in the community at all, and they're not in a position to field those kinds of questions anymore. And as a consequence of that, one of the things that's happened, I think, is that the older generation has lost some respect for the younger generation because they can't carry the same weight. They can't carry the same water because they're not expecting themselves to carry that water anymore. You look like you just ate shit, John. Do you disagree with me about that?
No, I don't disagree with you, but, you know, the weight and the water the generation needs to carry now is dramatically different
Yeah.
than yours and mine and Eric's and Larry's. And it's not,
Here, that was not one.
the generational point.
Oh, okay.
You know, the game has changed. The entry point has changed. You don't have to have your chops cut and know everything and know all the rules and the whatever and know all the history. And, you know, oh my God, what do the colors of the leather pride flag mean to you? And if you were a tree, what would you be? Enough of it.
What's your favorite Disney character?
Okay? You know, but the point is, you know, generational change. This has been coming 10, 12 years now, and now it's here, and it's happening so fast. You know, yeah, so I don't want to say the old guard, because there's no such thing. But the old guard.
He just got up because he had gas.
I was about to make a prep in your joke, but no. But what we need to know and the challenges we're facing today that the old guard like, okay? I'll be a little respectful in that regard. You know, it's been done. New people are stepping in to take on the challenges that we need.
But not many.
But not many, but more than you think, and it's not, we can't view it as a collective, as an entire leather community. What's going on in LA is different than what's going on in Chicago, which is different than what's going on in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, versus Charlotte, versus Berlin, versus Poland, versus Tel Aviv.
Which is phenomenal in and of itself. Again, we have morphed into something that is far bigger. When we talk about the leather community, in years past, it was the leather community. It wasn't the puppies. It wasn't the kink. I shouldn't say the kink. It wasn't the furries. It wasn't the furries. It wasn't a lot of things that are out there today. We also, if you think about it, 10 years ago, how many of you actually had a telephone in your actual house? How many of you have a telephone in your house now? Lots of changes. I mean, think of the number of websites in which we actually all communicate. You know, if we actually had majority of those major websites, and we know which ones I'm talking about, all go down for the next 48 hours, shit would roll. You're exactly right, but that's what I'm saying. Part of what we have to think about is not just what we have. We have that. It's like anything. You have something in your house for a long time, you may still always love it, you may appreciate it and everything else like that, but when that new shiny thing comes into the house and everything, it's like, ooh, that's kind of pretty. Kind of makes me, so things, it doesn't diminish overall the importance of those things. However, it gives us the opportunity to breathe new life into our lives, to our friends, how we play, when we play, who we play with, where others, many years ago, did not have those opportunities.
I would like to ask, if we're talking about the major websites, as a title holder, and this is not about numbers, but I have people reach out to me from all over the fucking globe asking questions.
Yes.
Asking about, hey, is there a cool event going on? I'm coming to the States, or is it, where do I go in LA, or where do I go in Berlin? That's so long ago, I don't remember. And like all of those things, and I think that that's actually really cool. Because they see us as light beacons, and sometimes we are seen as light beacons, and some of us want to fulfill that position, some of us don't, and both is fine. Again, I think both is fine. And I just sort of wanted to add that, sorry. I mean, talking about generational divide too, we're talking about a new generation, an old guard and new guard in this whole entire conversation. I always see old guard, new guard as a generational shift. And I do believe that in the sense of the people that we lost during the early years of the HIV epidemic, and well, the first 25 years of the HIV epidemic, let's be real, there was a very sincere cut. So it became very evident what was and what then became, or at least that's how I explain it in my own brain. You can disagree or agree, whatever you want to do. But look at it this way. Trevor Black, Mr. San Francisco Leather, who I'm sad is not here today, but Patrick knows him. Trevor Black is a drag queen. Who in this room knows Mama Jose? Who's Mama Jose?
Mama Jose was the first person who created the imperial system for all of those.
And who was Jose Sarria as well?
That's who Jose Sarria was.
And who was Jose Sarria as well?
We're talking about the Widow Norton?
Yeah. No, we're talking about Leatherman.
We're talking about the Leatherman of, yes.
It was a Leatherman that created the imperial court system, who sparkled and healed and wigs. So today we have people that say, oh, that's not a real Leatherman. 2 title holders. And I'm like, well, who the fuck are you to tell me what I do in my bedroom? Who are you to tell me who I am?
More importantly, every one of us has tremendous difference in this room. How dare we cast our own, like ourselves out and everything else like that? Sure, we may not necessarily have the same ideas. I may not necessarily believe in your beliefs, but you're entitled. You're still part of my community. It's like, enough of the casting of the stones. I mean, sure, we will make jabs, we will make fun, all that kind of stuff, but we got to be the same people that are going to be there to lend a hand or a shoulder or anything else like that when one of our friends, loved ones, or our community is down.
And that's what it is.
I think you kind of explained that old guard, new guard thing. And I agree with you. I do see that as a generational divide.
I need a drink.
And I want to get this thought out because I think it's important. I'll stop talking. There are always people, years over years. Now, I know a little bit of my ML history, just a little bit. And we always hear about, oh my God, we didn't have that many contestants. And we've all heard how, oh my God, she won, and on and on and on. But you know what? Over the years, the same things have said. Like Guy has said, well, they're not getting contestants anymore. We've heard sort of a convoluted, well, oh my God, Ron Moore, an African American in 1984, won IML. Do you want to know how many not emails, snail mail letters and phone calls Chuck Renslow got saying, oh my God, and I don't want to use the words that were used because I've seen them. This is the end of IML. Okay? And then we moved into the modern era because there was this physical type that had to be IML. The way there was a physical type that could only win drum. And then, oh my God, Mike Taylor won IML. A bear. Well, that's the end of IML. It sucks. And then a few years later, Tyler McCormick won IML. And the whole fucking roof blew off. Tyler himself will tell you, yeah, I'm the gimp who broke IML.
PR is that PR.
And the hate mail and the vitriol that came in. And we couldn't figure out, is it because Tyler is a trans male? Or was it people couldn't get past the wheelchair and it was the trans thing they could hide behind? And 6 months into his year, I kind of figured out the answer to that question. And it was disgusting. It wasn't because he was trans. Moving on. Now we have puppies. We have gearheads. And on and on and on. So it's all changing really fast, and at every turn in IML's history where, oh my God, this is it, it's over. Welcome to IML 37, folks.
It's time for questions. Who's got questions out there, or comments that will be short?
Oh, he's French Canadian, this could take a while.
Well, it's more of a comment and an add-on to what you guys are saying. I ran for Mr. Pierre Montréal in 2011. 2011, my year, I had a great predecessor, and we actually had our first IML in 2006.
Yes.
Both. And at that time, I was just a barfly. And I was just taking in whatever's happening and having sex and, you know, just enjoying the scene. I didn't see him or them as leaders. I became a title holder, and with that title, people came up to me and asking me questions pertaining to our community. It's then that I actually realized that I had an enormous power with having a title. It's up to you to decide what you want to do with it. And during that title year, all I did was fraternize with my people in Montreal. I went to IML. I made hundreds of friends. It changed my life forever. Okay, like you said, Guy, it changes your life forever. From that moment on, from IML, when I participated, I actually built my community to what it is today. I actually started a new leather club. It's a leather and rubber club, which has never been seen in Montreal. I'm bringing people together. The work doesn't necessarily happen while you are a title holder, but that title that you actually earned, and whatever you do with it, people always look up to you, and whatever you do, they will follow. Create an event, and people will come. I have created this leather club in Montreal. We're 34 members in only 4 months. One member who has belonged to another leather club before. All of the new members in our club have never belonged to a leather club before. They're all looking up to me and to our community to see what do we do. I've been pinning our leather club pin on people, and some people have told me, how are you going to pin it? I don't know. I've never pinned anybody before.
Use a nail gun.
So, you know, the leadership of a title holder, yes, it's important, but it's what you do with it. You do whatever you want.
You said two very important things. One of them is, I think you're always a title holder. Just because you step aside does not mean you're not a title holder anymore. As much as, if you've never had a title, you don't have to be a title holder, okay? So I think that that's important because you'll always be who you are because the title doesn't make you, but you make the title. And secondly, you spoke about a predecessor that was very successful. When my title son was running for my title, people were like, well, how the fuck is he gonna fill your boots? And I said, what the fuck? Whose boots does he have to fill? Nobody's. He grabs that thing and he does with it whatever he wants. And all I want him to do is I want him to have a year that he'll remember and that he'll be proud of for himself, by his own values, by his own measuring stick, by nobody else's. So I do not think it is appropriate to compare a title holder to his dad or any other.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm wanting to comment on the predecessors, how we have to live up to something, because I've noticed, I originally lived on the East Coast, and when I first moved there, there was people running, like 10, 15, 20 people running for the titles. Now it's dwindled down, and now that I'm living in Texas, I've seen it there. It's getting to the point where I'm sick of watching all these people go, oh, you have to meet this person's, what they did. And it's like, well, if they've already done it, what's new? Like, how can I be myself and represent myself because that's why I was chosen? So, what would you recommend? Like, how can we make that change? Because it's
Politely tell them to go fuck themselves.
At the same time, it's important to understand what other people have done. It does not mean you can totally say, I appreciate what you did, that's incredible. I think you should be very proud of yourself. My plan for this year is different. Because that shows respect, and it also means that you understand where we've come from, because a lot of people in this room have done a lot of shit for us to be able to sit here. Absolutely. And to not have to fight over sitting in a Holiday Inn that probably 30 years ago would have looked at us and be like, freaks. Whereas now, the receptionists invite Ramian behind. He does a little phone show, which was hilarious. And they want to take pictures with us because they love it. So I think there's two sides to the coin, and it's very much about how you want to understand it.
Which is another way to say fuck you.
Seriously, it's your year, you own it your way. What was done, be respectful of what was done before you, but don't let anybody define you
Absolutely.
based on
By other standards.
what the other guy did, and whether the other, or someone 10 years ago said, well, when I was emperor, shut up.
Because if you allow yourself to be co-opted into doing it somebody else's way, I promise you that a day will dawn when you will have lost respect for yourself for having done it that way. I guarantee you. Lou?
Guy and John, I wanted to get your perspective on the history.
Where's that voice?
Sing out, Louise.
Do you guys, are there fewer title contestants because there's too many title contests? Do you guys feel like the title contests have grown and running out of people? Is it because we're asking too much of title holders?
Well, some could argue that there is an abundance of titles in the United States. There was a time where, not to put a finer point on it, our first year at the Palmer House, some years back, I ran into somebody in the lobby. I didn't know, I just smacked into him. And I backed away and I looked at his vest, and the vest said, Mr. Nipple, 1998. And I just said, you're from San Francisco, aren't you? And there was a time where, how many contestants did we have from California? 15, 17, 20?
Wait, but that is California.
No. But my point is, things have settled down. And there are fewer titles around the country. And there seems to now be a roughly, I don't want to say equilibrium, but
What do you mean?
yeah, I did. There you go. There is a closed group on Facebook, and I know you're all going to try and hack into it now, but you won't, of contestants for each year. And it's a way we communicate with them through the year. Right now, Jeff, what do we have? 50?
In the group or
In the
running?
group. In the group.
You're at 60. We're at
There's
59.
60 in the group. Does that mean we're going to have 60 contestants this year? No. Not all of them will compete for various numbers of reasons. And IML seems to have settled into this 45 to 54 range. There was one year, I think it was Tony's year, we were at like 68, 62, no, we were, I think it was 64. So, you know, it changes from year to year. I don't think it's diminishing. There are some titles, by virtue of their longevity and history, keep plowing ahead.
I think that one of the possible, and the correct answer is, there's no way to know. Because, you know, we don't have the kind of money to fund research to get concrete, defensible answers to that kind of a question. But it's fun to speculate about what the reasons might be. And I think that one of the possibilities is that many people who had previously seen the title system as the gateway into the leather, you know, slash BDSM kink leather world, have now realized that the internet is the gateway, and they no longer need to go the title route in order to have access to people, or at least they believe that's true. And that may have changed the number of people who are really interested in competing. But I'm sure there are other opinions here about that.
But there's one more point I need to make, because there's a misconception out there about, you know, all these title contests from whether it's Chicago, New York, San Francisco, Washington, D.C., et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. IML does not certify, does not endorse, nor does the organization sanction or approve or license any of them. It's the textbook example of you build it, they come.
So, to the number of contestants, I'll just, because you brought up LA. So in LA, what we do is we realize that California has San Francisco, we have San Diego, when we have Los Angeles. Those are the big three cities, and then obviously Palm Springs and Long Beach and others. So within that, Long Beach also partially feeds into LA, so sorry, that was a confusion in my brain out there. So what we have done is that we realized that if LA was to send every single title holder in that state, we would fill up half of IML. So LA in itself has created the Los Angeles Leather Coalition to bring 10 titles together and then select one person, or not select, but award one person the regional title that'll then go and compete as that region in IML. Now, what we do have is, in the year I competed out of 10...
By the way, IML did not ask LA to do that.
No, we did that ourselves.
We did it.
It was very expensive to send 10 people, so we decided it was much more German and efficient. No. And I was 13, so I did not have my hands in it.
No, somebody had their hands in you.
My mother never fisted me, I will publicly deny. I was 14, that was it. So, but what we did have is in my year when I competed out of 10 feeder contests, we had we had 2 that were rumored to die because they had no contestants. We had 24 total contestants for 10 feeder contests, 4 of which were at the Eagle. We this year had 10 solid contests that are feeding. Next year we will have 3 more feeding into LAL. And this year we had 48 people competing for 10 titles. So it is not that we're dying, it is not that the title holders or the title system is dying. I think it's the inspiration that sometimes lacks and the value that some people do not see. For 5 years, without any judgment or discredit, because I never judge, for 5 years we had a military club winning LAL. A military club is a very specific thing. Not a lot of people are into full leather uniforms. Not a lot of people can afford them. So people were discouraged, and I went in there and I just showed my butt, and apparently I talked about foreskin and won. But no, but what I want to say is, I think it's about inspiration, and we went from an average age of 40 to an average age of, what was it this year, 31 or 30, something like that? Average age of contestants.
At IML?
No, at LAL.
Well, what is IML, John?
We're running about 36, 37 is the median point. It ticked up a little bit last year.
Oh, this is
That is not my fault.
No, it did. There was somebody in their 60s this year, but there was also someone who was 27.
That changes the discussion.
Yes.
So it moves things around on the bell curve.
And quite honestly, every year is going to change based on the dynamics and the economy and all the other values and things that actually that happen into our lives. Those are all very valid, reasons.
Yeah.
It's a very organic, changeable thing that's very responsive. Let's go way out there. Yeah.
One of the things like being
Louder and louder.
one of the things that I've noticed so far is being a great example that I wanted to say was no matter what fundraising we do or whether we meet public and whatnot, what we do, one of the most gratifying things for the private aspect said to me saying I also have changed their life.
Yeah, that's
Actions that we do, he went to rehab to became himself.
Can't hear you over there.
You went to rehab.
Oh, okay.
And you went up.
So when you guys talked about earlier about some people abusing certain like when a producer of a contest is using it to earn money and stuff like that, and using other systems that we have in place. What ways do you guys think that we can put people who don't want to be title holders or don't want to be in that position, but want to be at a spot where they can help out and like be a treasurer or feel a need in an organization?
It's easy, talk to the people in charge. And if you don't like the way they're doing it and they keep rebuffing you, go start your own and do your own thing.
There is not an organization out there that actually thrives, benefits, and grows without all of those individuals that want to stay behind the scenes and just make it.
Damn right.
This really is a wonderful conversation, and can you hear me?
Yes.
And I'm struck by two things. One is, in some ways, there's less change than people think. And some of the stuff that keeps being said is different, really isn't. It's just that it's variable over time. Back about 25 years ago, I judged a contest that had 2 contestants. We didn't have the option of none of the above, which was unfortunate. I have seen people many years ago who didn't have any history in the leather community become contestants. I've seen others who have lots of history become contestants. These are things that just vary over time, and they're not consistent changes. But what is consistent in change is there have been eras of the title system, and that's become very clear in this conversation. The first being the we're just going to get together and have fun and drink beer. The second being the AIDS era. And what I'd like to think about is what era we're in now, because one of the functions that clearly the title system still has is in this era where the brick and mortar infrastructures have crumbled so much, it does give people a chance to be in the same room and in physical contact with other bodies. And I'm reminded of the
It's time for questions. Who's got questions out there or comments that will be
It's French Canadian, this could take a while.
Well, it's more of a comment and an add-on to what you guys are saying. I ran for Mr. Pierre in 2011. 2011, my year, I had a great predecessor, and we actually had our first IML in 2006.
Yes.
Both. And at that time, I was just a barfly. And I was just taking in whatever was happening and having sex and, just enjoying the scene. I didn't see him or them as leaders. I became a title holder, and with that title, people came up to me and asking me questions pertaining to our community. It's then that I actually realized that I had an enormous power with having a title. It's up to you to decide what you want to do with it. And during that title year, all I did was fraternize with my people in Montreal. I went to IML. I made hundreds of friends. It changed my life forever. Okay, like you said, Guy, it changes your life forever. From that moment on, from IML, when I participated, I actually built my community to what it is today. I actually started a new leather club. It's a leather and rubber club. which has never been seen in Montreal. I'm bringing people together. The work doesn't necessarily happen while you are a title holder, but that title that you actually earned, and whatever you do with it, people always look up to you, and whatever you do, they will follow. Create an event, and people will come. I have created this leather club in Montreal. We're 34 members in only 4 months. One member who has belonged to another leather club before. All of the new members in our club have never belonged to a leather club before. They're all looking up to me and to our community to see what do we do. I've been pinning our leather club pin on people, and some people have told me, how are you going to pin it? I don't know. I've never pinned anybody before.
Use a nail gun.
So, you know, the leadership of a title holder, yes, it's important, but it's what you do with it. You do whatever you want.
You said two very important things. One of them is, I think you're always a title holder. Just because you step aside does not mean you're not a title holder anymore. As much as, if you've never had a title, you don't have to be a title holder, okay? So I think that that's important because you'll always be who you are because the title doesn't make you, but you make the title. And secondly, you spoke about a predecessor that was very successful. When my title son was running for my title, people were like, well, how the fuck is he going to fill your boots? And I said, what the fuck? Whose boots does he have to fill? Nobody's. He grabs that thing and he does with it whatever he wants. And all I want him to do is I want him to have a year that he'll remember and that he'll be proud of for himself, by his own values, by his own measuring stick, by nobody else's. So I do not think it is appropriate to compare a title holder to his dad or any predecessors.
Yes.
I'm wanting to comment on the predecessors, how we have to live up to something, because I've noticed, I originally lived on the East Coast, and when I first moved there, there was people running, like 10, 15, 20 people running for the titles. Now it's dwindled down, and now that I'm living in Texas, I've seen it there. It's getting to the point where I'm sick of watching all these people go, oh, you have to meet this person's, what they did. And it's like, well, if they've already done it, what's new? Like, how can I be myself and represent myself because that's why I was chosen? So, what would you recommend? Like, how can we make that change? Because it's
politely tell them to go fuck themselves.
At the same time, it's important to understand what other people have done. It does not mean you can totally say, I appreciate what you did, that's incredible. I think you should be very proud of yourself. My plan for this year is different. Because that shows respect, and it also means that you understand where we've come from, because a lot of people in this room have done a lot of shit for us to be able to sit here. Absolutely. And to not have to fight over sitting in a Holiday Inn that probably 30 years ago would have looked at us and be like, freaks. Whereas now, the receptionists, and by Ramian behind, he does a little phone show, which was hilarious. And they want to take pictures with us because they love it. So I think there's two sides to the coin, and it's very much about how you want to understand it.
Which is another way to say fuck you.
Seriously, it's your year, you own it your way. What was done, be respectful of what was done before you, but don't let anybody define you.
Absolutely.
Based on what the other guy did, and whether or someone 10 years ago said, well, when I was emperor, shut up.
Because if you allow yourself to be co-opted into doing it somebody else's way, I promise you that a day will dawn when you will have lost respect for yourself for having done it that way. I guarantee you. Lou?
Guy and John, I wanted to get your perspective on the history.
Where's that voice?
Say out,
please. Do you guys, are there fewer title contestants because there's too many title contests? Do you guys feel like the title contests have grown and we're running out of people? Is it because we're asking too much of title holders?
Well, some could argue that there is an abundance of titles in the United States. There was a time where, not to put a finer point on it, our first year at the Palmer House, some years back. I ran into somebody in the lobby, I didn't know, I just smacked into him. And I backed away and I looked at his vest, and the vest said, Mr. Nipple, 1998. And I just said, you're from San Francisco, aren't you? And there was a time where, how many contestants did we have from California? 15, 17, 20?
Wait, but that is California.
No, but my point is, things have settled down. And there are fewer titles around the country. And there seems to now be a roughly, I don't want to say equilibrium, but.
What do you mean?
Yeah, I did. There you go. There is a closed group on Facebook, and I know you're all going to try and hack into it now, but you won't, of contestants for each year. And it's a way we communicate with them through the year. Right now, Jeff, what do we have? 50?
In the group or
in the group? In the group.
Nearly 60.
There's 60 in the group. Does that mean we're going to have 60 contestants this year? No. Not all of them will compete for various numbers of reasons. And IML seems to have settled into this 45 to 54 range. There was one year, I think it was Tony's year, we were at like 68, 62, no, we were, I think 64. So, you know, it changes from year to year. I don't think it's diminishing. There are some titles, by virtue of their longevity and history, keep plowing ahead.
I think that one of the possible, and the correct answer is, there's no way to know. Because, you know, we don't have the kind of money to fund research to get concrete, defensible answers to that kind of a question. But it's fun to speculate about what the reasons might be. And I think that one of the possibilities is that many people who had previously seen the title system as the gateway into the leather, slash BDSM kink leather world, have now realized that the internet is the gateway, and they no longer need to go the title route in order to have access to people, or at least they believe that's true. And that may have changed the number of people who are really interested in competing. But I'm sure there are other opinions here about that.
But there's one more point I need to make, because there's a misconception out there about all these title contests from whether it's Chicago, New York, San Francisco, Washington, D.C., et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. IML does not certify, does not endorse, nor does the organization sanction or approve or license any of them. It's the textbook example of you build it, they come.
So, to the number of contestants, I'll just, because you brought up LA. So in LA, what we do is we realize that California has San Francisco, we have San Diego, when we have Los Angeles. Those are the big three cities, and then obviously Palm Springs and Long Beach and others. So within that, Long Beach also partially feeds into LA, so sorry, that was a confusion in my brain out there. So what we have done is that we realized that if LA was to send every single title holder in that state, we would fill up half of IML. So LA in itself has created the Los Angeles Leather Coalition to bring 10 titles together and then select one person, or not select, but award one person the regional title that'll then go and compete as that region in IML. Now, what we do have is, in the year I competed out of 10...
By the way, IML did not ask LA to do that.
No, we did that ourselves.
We did it.
It was very expensive to send 10 people, so we decided it was much more German and efficient. No. And I was 13, so I did not have my hands in it.
No, somebody had their hands in you.
My mother never fisted me, I will publicly deny. I was 14, that was it. So, but what we did have is in my year when I competed out of 10 feeder contests, we had we had 2 that were rumored to die because they had no contestants. We had 24 total contestants for 10 feeder contests, 4 of which were at the Eagle. We this year had 10 solid contests that are feeding. Next year we will have 3 more feeding into LAL. And this year we had 48 people competing for 10 titles. So it is not that we're dying. It is not that the title holders or the title system is dying. I think it's the inspiration that sometimes lacks and the value that some people do not see. For 5 years, without any judgment or discredit, because I never judge, for 5 years we had a military club winning LAL. A military club is a very specific thing. Not a lot of people are into full leather uniforms. Not a lot of people can afford them. So people were discouraged, and I went in there and I just showed my butt, and apparently I talked about foreskin and won. But no, but what I want to say is, I think it's about inspiration, and we went from an average age of 40 to an average age of, what was it this year, 31 or 30, something like that? Average age of contestants.
And I know?
No, at LAL.
Well, what is that, John?
We're running about 36, 37 is the median point. It ticked up a little bit last year.
Oh, this is
That is not my fault.
No, it did. There was somebody in their 60s this year, but there was also someone who was 27.
That changes the distance.
Yes. So it moves things around on the bell curve.
And quite honestly, every year is going to change based on the dynamics and the economy and all the other values and things that actually happen into our lives. Those are all very valid, reasons.
Yeah.
It's a very organic, changeable thing that's very responsive. Let's go way out there. Yeah.
One of the things, like being
Louder.
one of the things I've noticed so far as being a great title holder, I wanted to say was, no matter what fundraising you do or whether we meet public and whatnot, what we do, one of the most gratifying things for the private aspects of me saying, I also think change their life. Actions that we do. He went to rehab to get himself.
Can't hear you over there. You went to rehab.
Oh, okay.
And you went up.
So when you guys talked about earlier about some people abusing certain like when a producer of the contest is using it as a to earn money and stuff like that, and using other systems that we have in place. What ways do you guys think that we can put people who don't want to be title holders, or don't want to be in that position, but want to be at a spot where they can help out and like be a treasurer or fill a need in an organization?
It's easy. Talk to the people in charge. And if you don't like the way they're doing it and they keep rebuffing you, go start your own and do your own thing.
Thank you.
There is not an organization out there that actually thrives, benefits, and grows without all of those individuals that want to stay behind the scenes and just make it. Damn right.
This really is a wonderful conversation, and can you hear me?
Yes.
And I'm struck by two things. One is, in some ways, there's less change than people think. And some of the stuff that keeps being said is different, really isn't. It's just that it's variable over time. Back about 25 years ago, I judged a contest that had 2 contestants. We didn't have the option of none of the above, which was unfortunate. I have seen people many years ago who didn't have any history in the leather community become contestants. I've seen others who have lots of history become contestants. These are things that just vary over time, and they're not consistent changes. But what is consistent in change is there have been eras of the title system, and that's become very clear in this conversation. The first being the we're just going to get together and have fun and drink beer. The second being the AIDS era. And what I'd like to think about is what era we're in now, because one of the functions that clearly the title system still has is in this era where the brick and mortar infrastructures have crumbled so much, it does give people a chance to be in the same room and in physical contact with other bodies. And I'm reminded of the San Francisco group Men in Gear. Their poster always said, get off the damn computer, get geared up, go out. And there are fewer and fewer places to go out to. But one of the things, so we have gone from a model of permanent brick and mortar places to temporary events. But they're not all titles. They're not all title contests. There's the Folsom Street Fair. And I will point out, there's Claw. Claw pointed out to me last year, although there are lots of title holders here and title holders started it, there's no contest. So I think there are other models for these kind of getting together in a temporary way that don't necessarily have to have a title contest. And I'm interested in thinking about other ways to cope with the non-brick and mortar, now more virtual era that we're in. Because I think it's a bigger problem than just the issue of title contest.
Bob?
It's true we do not have a contest at Claw. It is also true that we still need leather title holders to create Claw. Every year, we fill maybe 100 of the hardest jobs with 40 or 50 current title holders, because they're almost all willing to help twice as much as a normal person. So